Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to discuss the current economic situation regarding the United States and what do I project for the future. 2026, 2027 should be amazing years. Right now, Trump has to coax it and manipulate the economy and the Fed to act a certain way within the next few months to be able to have a very prosperous 2026 and especially 2027 going into 2028. It is the golden rule of a 2% inflation, or at least around 2%, and a 2% interest rate overall. Now, there's a number of reasons Trump wants to get the interest rates down. One of the bigger reasons not many people talk about is the refinancing of around $6 trillion in debt, mainly because of the bonds that were given out in 2021. They are expiring in 5-year bonds in 2026. So it's around $6 trillion. Trump would love to refinance that debt at 2%, not 3.5% or 4%. If we continue going the same way we're going right now, you're looking at a serious problem in terms of the debt going up because of the refinancing. If it is around 4%, we know that Trump, there's a number of things in the pipeline right now. First and foremost, we know, as the saying goes, markets hate uncertainty. And there is a lot of uncertainty when it comes to a number of global situations. Let's just attack one by one and then kind of come to a conclusion on everybody needing to calm down when it comes to this market. This is not propaganda for Trump. This is just the reality of it. This is an independent person like myself saying it. And so this is just how economics are. But let's just go through this. You've got the two war situations, the war between Israel and Palestine and the war in Eastern Europe. We know that both of those, as long as Trump keeps his word, and it does seem like Trump is pressuring Ukraine, pressuring Russia to end this war, that inevitably will foster a better economic situation in the United States. It is bullish news if that war ends. Israel, Palestine, maybe a little bit more complicated in terms of Trump saying he wants the United States to annex Gaza. Maybe it's going to be the Arab countries investing. They said they wanted to commit around $53 billion to the area. Look, whether you want Israel to win, Palestine to win, it's a very complicated situation. We know Trump obviously is a big-time Zionist, but once that war ends, or at least there's a ceasefire, obviously it really never ends in the Middle East, I guess, outside of expelling the Palestinians out of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, which honestly is kind of what Trump has said he wants to do, although we know Trump always over-exaggerates things, especially when it comes to the initial stages of negotiations to set a baseline and then agree on something, come closer together. That's just how Trump negotiates, and it is a smart strategy. Maybe it's not a negotiation, I don't know. Obviously, Trump has a lot of members within his cabinet that love Israel and support it to a crazy degree. But the overall point is, when it comes to the economy, those two wars ending are going to be very good. Another big thing, obviously, is the tariffs. Now, if you look at the situation since Trump got in, people would probably attribute the tariffs as the number one reason as to why the United States might have another recession. People talking about that. Is a recession confirmed? We don't know. We are going to get 1 quarter of negative GDP growth, about -2% is what's projected when the numbers come out on March 29th. Will the second quarter be negative? We don't know. We had a recession under Biden. They tried changing the definition of it. But the recession will force the Fed to lower the interest rates. And Trump understands that inflation also has to be under control if he wants to enact a few different things, like the Doge dividend. Now, as for the Doge dividend, I'm not sure if it's going to happen. If it does happen, is it going to be 2025, which would be this April? In terms of, it's just like a tax refund of $5,000, which is just amazing. And I think the Trump administration should implore people to invest that rather than spend it, because that is something that can cause inflation. And Trump is also giving huge tax cuts. That's why you've got this new spending bill. People are like, well, it's actually adding to the debt. It's because of the tax cuts Trump is going to be handing out. That's why. And it's like, what Trump wants to do is he wants to create an economic environment to where you incentivize people spending more money, and you give people more disposable income. That's the point of it. So Listen, Trump needs the interest rates down to 2%. You've got a potential Doge dividend in the pipeline. That's $5,000. That's going to really help the economy. It's not a stimulus. It's reallocation of funds that were previously misplaced and saved through the Department of Government Efficiency. And so we see this and people are all angry. It's a long-term thing. There's no presidential election in 2026. Yes, it's the midterms. We get it. And I think you're going to start seeing things turn around. This takes time. When you're talking about economic policy, and obviously right now, with everything going on, it's not like Trump is doing a ton to help the current situation. You could certainly argue he's hurting it, possibly on purpose to try and get the Fed interest rates lowered. Because you would love to have those at 2% when you have the refinancing of the $6 trillion in debt in 2026. And you also have to control inflation, considering Trump is doing the tax cuts. That's going to have an effect as well. But you go back all the way to the early 1980s with stagflation when Ronald Reagan took over, and then there was an immediate recession. He had an approval rating of about 40%. He turned it around within a year and a half. But the first 5 or 6 months for Ronald Reagan were really bad. I'm not comparing that to this. This is not as near dire of a scenario. But I do think Trump is sacrificing short-term success for long-term success. So you're going to have that short-term pain to set up the long-term success. It's not cope. This is economics 101. It's economics 101. Trump knows what he's doing. He had the economy in a great place. We had 2% interest rates. We had 2% inflation. This was back in 2019 before, and his inflation was like 1.6, 1.7. I think I'm underselling Trump. He had an amazing economy, and it took a little bit of time because you had tariffs and you had the markets go down, and liberals gloated back in 2017 when Trump took office in January. It's the same thing. Now, this is a little bit more balls to the wall when it comes to the tariffs, for sure. But we do have a lot of bullish news coming. Trump does fully endorse crypto. We know that. We've got the great strategic reserve now, which is going to be something that's really going to make the government a lot of money now that we've got 200K Bitcoin. We'd like to see a bigger investment into it by around 5% of the supply. That's what the Bitcoin Act is. But we will see what Trump ends up doing. So guys, when it comes to this, Trump needs the interest rates lowered. People are saying, well, easy for you to say, listen, I've lost a lot of money in this. We've all lost a lot of money. We've lost money. Elon Musk has lost a lot of money. There's always these sacrifices at the beginning. You really think Elon Musk, after joining the government in some capacity, is going to just have Tesla completely tanked because of some liberals protesting? This is a short-term thing. Yes, if we stopped right now, we would say, well, wow, Tesla crashed. Zoom out. You have to zoom out. And it's really zoom out to the future because these are all short-term losses. Trump knows what he's doing. You have to get the interest rates down. It will stimulate economic growth. And you're not only going to have that, you're going to have the wars ending. You're going to have a Greenland acquisition, which is going to be very bullish for the market, depending on the cost. But it's going to be very bullish. People understand there's going to be more money injected into the United States. It's basically, we're going to be getting like trillions of dollars for free. Yes, there's an investment that needs to be made into Greenland, but there's a lot of bullish stuff. The Doge dividend, $5,000 for people. You have to be careful about inflation on that, but it's less inflation than a stimulus because they printed money with the stimulus. That's the number one cause of inflation. Another cause can be giving out something like the dividend, but if you've got it under control, if you can get it around 2.5%, Trump is watching inflation. He's watching the overall federal interest rates, and that's very important. And there's another meeting like on the 19th. We'll see if they end up lowering them on the 19th, or maybe it'll take another 6 weeks. At their next meeting, they'll lower them, but they're going to have to be lowered. They're going to have to be lowered. This recession, listen, they lowered them back in September for no reason. This was always going to happen. They delayed it because the Democrats needed a good market, or at least a serviceable market going into the election to try and retain power. But now Trump in 2025, there's no elections. You have some wiggle room here. He knows his short-term approval rating will probably suffer because of this economic downturn, but it's a short-term thing. So do we really think Trump as a businessman is just going to let this continue to tank? No, this is just part of a strategy. This is Trump understanding there's no election in 2025. Let's fix everything right now. So when we get into 2026, 2027, 2028, we have a powerhouse. We're looking at a 2%, 2.5% inflation rate. We're looking at 2% interest rates are around there, and we have the Doge dividend, we've got all the wars ending, and we also have the huge investment of trillions of dollars into the Trump economy by foreign countries because they realize Trump, with him removing a lot of the regulations, it's a more attractive business situation in the United States under someone like Trump than it would be under Biden or Harris. And so you talk about this, well, they're adding more money to the debt. I mean, it's very hard to limit that. You know, that's why you got Elon Musk. Elon Musk talking about entitlements. Well, yes, there's about $200 billion in fraud related to entitlements, but you can't touch the entitlements. Elon Musk talks about it once. He's like, look, we look at the budget. The entitlements are by far the number one biggest thing. It's above defense spending by a lot, but we can't touch them. Trump said he's not touching Social Security. The Social Security is a big problem. They should have obviously invested the Social Security money, the government that is, that they got, into the stock market. But now the Social Security, because people are living longer, will be running out, at least to a degree, to where people are not going to receive their full payout. I think people have to understand Social Security, it's a tax. You're not necessarily, well, I'm not going to say that, but you have to be very careful with the Social Security. But the idea of Social Security, which was originally introduced in 1935 under the New Deal, it doesn't make sense, and it's not a long-term solution, especially considering where we are with modern medicine, people living longer. And so something is going to have to be done about that. But you can't do anything because you're going to get crushed in the polls. You're going to get crushed in an election if you try and talk about Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. But those are things, I mean, if you really want to eliminate the deficit, and yes, Trump has made a commitment over like a 4-year period to cut defense spending by 8%. Trump talked to China, Russia. He said, let's do this. Let's all cut. Let's create a more peaceful environment for other countries. We're the 3 biggest players when it comes to military in terms of other countries being scared of us, especially China and the United States. And Russia agreed and said, yeah, we should do something like that. Trump has a very good relationship with Russia. It's very important. And then they call him a Russian agent. Well, no, that's basically just Trump winning a Nobel Peace Prize to have a good relationship with an adversary like Russia. And it's very impressive. But Trump is trying to, I mean, yeah, technically, I think the military budget's going to be going up on this next spending bill because we need the economic investment to help stimulate the economy. This is a short-term thing. They're going to be cutting it. I mean, they have to, at some point, you're going to have to cut the defense spending to a degree if you want to eliminate the deficit. And you're also going to have to cut entitlements. We're talking about cutting the fraud in entitlements. And we're not, we want people to have their, what they paid for, I guess, in terms of taxes at a younger age. That should be available for them at an older age, but there does have to be a reevaluation of how Social Security works. So let me just explain everything right here. This is a short-term problem. People are going crazy. They're saying Trump has destroyed the economy with these tariffs. When it comes to the tariffs, it's hard to say exactly what Trump is going to do, okay? The problem is Trump keeps going back and forth. Now, at a certain point, Trump could just say, all right, we're done with the tariffs, or Trump could go really hard with the tariffs and force capitulation for Canada, which would be them saying, we give up, we can't handle this. It's been like 7 months now. Canada's trying to use the whole narrative, well, the trade war hurts both the United States and Canada, and it does, especially at the start, but it hurts Canada a lot more, and especially Canada getting tariffs now imposed by China as well. It's going to hurt them significantly. So Trump, he can wait this out. There's going to be some problems in terms of the economy with the tariff situation, but overall, it could give the United States a better trade deal with Canada. Or if you really want to go outside the box, the United States could add Alberta as a state. I'm not kidding. It's unlikely, but it's possible, and that's just a major thing. That's more important than tariffs, because then you're talking about the natural gas, the resources that comes with Alberta. It's insane. I'm not saying Trump's going to do that. It might be a renegotiation of a potential trade deal with Mexico and China and Canada. I don't know what, because the thing is Trump really has delayed the tariffs 2 times now with both Mexico and Canada, at least in certain areas. But now he's announcing there's 25% tariffs. I just saw today that are going to be going to place, I think, on other sectors within Canada. So I think it might be automobile. But look, the tariffs, it's hard to get a read on what Trump wants to do. Mostly they're used for leverage, but when it comes to the expense, I mean, maybe this is part of the idea to where you have got to get those interest rates down. He knows tariffs will create uncertainty in the market, which will drop the stock market, which will cause the interest rates to be lowered because they're going to have to stimulate the economy. So that could be a little on what it is. I mean, the problem with tariffs now, as opposed to when we had many tariffs, 150 years ago, the government was a lot smaller then. So it's just harder to enact a similar plan when you're dealing with a government that's as bloated as it is now. Now, Elon Musk is trying to help and eliminate some of the waste and fire a bunch of people. I mean, that's what they had to do. They had to fire all these federal workers. People are like, well, you shouldn't. It's very sad. Yeah, we don't want people to be fired, but this was always going to happen. If you brought someone from the outside in, and it's like they just keep expanding. They get bigger. There's never any cuts because the people that are in, they get in through other people who get in through other people. It's like this chain reaction pyramid scheme in the government to where it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And the bloat just got out of control. So Musk comes in and pops the balloon, and people are going to be very angry about that because a lot of people get fired. And I can understand that. But when it comes to this, all I'm saying is it's going to get a lot better in 2026, 2027. We live in a world where it's very reactionary. Everyone's online. They're on social media. They see the stock market. They see the tariffs. They think, well, Trump's destroying the economy. There's a long-term solution to a short-term problem to get the interest rates down, to get inflation down, which in turn will create a mega boom for the economy by 2027. You're like, why do you have to wait? Well, that's just how economics are. It takes time. When you implement something, there is the delay. It's what they call a lag. And eventually, the policies that Trump implements will have a serious positive effect on the economy, whether that's through, I mean, he could just end the tariffs and the economy would improve like that. But that's a thing to where it's like, do you really want to do that? Because then it's like Trump admitting defeat to a degree on the tariffs. Trump does want the tariffs to generate revenue for the United States government to be able to, I mean, this is, I'm not even sure if he wants this anymore, but this was the original thought. The problem is, if you're increasing the spending again, the thought was if you could lower the spending and cut the waste, and then have maybe, or generate maybe $1 trillion in revenue through tariffs alone, you could eliminate the state income tax. But I'm not sure if that's going to work because on the recent spending bill that Trump is trying to get put through, they are raising the government spending. And they say it's more of a short-term thing because they need to stimulate the economy. So this is a short-term thing. Trump is looking for the 2% interest rates. He's looking for around 2.5%, 3% inflation. The Fed is looking for reduced inflation before they lower interest rates. And they're gonna be forced to. Trump is gonna force them to because of the current situation. And then when we refinance the $6 trillion, we'll be refinancing it at around a 2% interest rate or 2.5% interest rate. You're saving hundreds of billions of dollars in added debt when you refinance in 2026 at 2% as opposed to 4.5% or 4.33%, whatever people expect it to be. If Trump weren't to do this, you create economic instability. Yeah, he's doing that. He says, I don't even look at the stock market right now. I'm focused on 2026, 2027. We're focused on the huge boom that's going to be coming. And so that's what Trump is saying. So guys, that's just the current situation in terms of the economy. There's a lot of people that dislike Trump. They want, oh, it's terrible, whatever. No, it's a long-term plan. This is a short-term thing. You have to lower the interest rates, and then you've got the Doge dividend, possibly. You have the investment of trillions of dollars. Just look at what happened with Taiwan and their semiconductors. I mean, the Democrats, they praised Biden for that semiconductor, the CHIPS Act. Remember that? They said it was bipartisan. It's one of the best things Biden did. It brought the chips to the United States to be manufactured in the United States, to not rely on Taiwan. Nobody paid money for investment. Why would they? The chips are more easily and quickly and more fastly produced, and also more cheap to produce them in Taiwan. So Trump said, we're going to hit you with a massive tariff. And Taiwan said, we will invest. Trump said it was like $180 billion. I thought it was 100, but Trump likes to round up a little bit. So he says about $180 billion, $160 billion. and they're going to be making chips. I mean, this is the biggest semiconductor company. This is the Taiwanese semiconductors. I mean, it's unbelievable. So just think about that for a second. They bragged about the CHIPS Act. Trump just completely steamrolled over the CHIPS Act and the investment by getting Taiwan directly, which is where we get our chips from, to invest into the United States. And I mean, they're going to have factories and they're going to be producing chips here in the US. And there's going to be no China reliance, because that's what it would be with their current umbrella China has, where they exude their soft power over Taiwan and they do the full-fledged invasion. Now, I don't know what Trump's going to do to combat that, but listen, I'm just telling everyone, with the economy, this is going to get a lot better. There's no doubt. It's not cope. It's all a strategy to lower the interest rates for a number of different reasons. Number one, because lower interest rates means the economy should be poised to do a lot better, because people will want to spend money. It's a better just environment. Obviously, you also do have the refinancing as well. And so that's what's going on here. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.